What's up guys, Kudou here. Remember when I said I was working on game reviews, a set review, and a Japanese video? Well, now we're doing a deck doctor. But you guys don't understand, okay? This deck doesn't just need a doctor. This deck is what we like to call critical condition. If my fans are just running around using subpar decks, then it's like I haven't accomplished anything. So today we're taking an emergency call and doing a deck doctor. Now the deck I've received is a pink-yellow Thorax deck. For those who don't know who Thorax is, he's actually one of the best mains that's come out recently, because he's just so good. He's very easy to flip, he's very versatile, and he works in pretty much any color combination you can think of. He gets +1 power for each of your friends with 2 or less printed power. That means you can run him in something like a critter deck, swarm the field, have him be huge, then he just kinda takes care of himself on your opponent's problem, and you just have to take care of the other problem. Pink-yellow is actually one of the better versions because it gives you access to draw engines and also some minor control. As anybody who plays with critters knows, you kind of have to focus the entire deck around critters if you decide to use critters as a core mechanic, but the cool thing about pink is we don't have to use a bunch of cards for pink to be useful. So, with that being said, let's take a look at the deck list. Oh, okay. That's... Do you guys see it? Do you see it now? We have to do something about this. I am not letting a Thorax deck die on my watch. Okay, so where do we begin? Here's how a Thorax deck should work hypothetically. You flip Thorax and you put him over here on your opponent's problem. Then you focus all of your other resources on swarming your own problem like this. With all of these low-cost, low-power cards in play, Thorax be looking like this. See, the trick to MLP deck building is look at what your main can do, and then focus on making that as broken as possible. Thorax gets +1 power for each of your friends with 2 or less printed power. So if all of the cards we play have 2 or less printed power, he gets +1 for each of your friends in play. Then you can play friends who can get more powerful after they hit the field, because it doesn't matter if you give them boosts after they hit the field, it's only their printed power that works for Thorax's effect. Now with that in mind, let's get to it. So let's start with the backbone of the deck, the yellow friends. This lineup is just, it's not a backbone at all. You're missing all of the key cards. There's no consistency. I really, looking over this, have no idea what you were going for. Can we just start with the 2 forest owl? Okay, listen to me. What I'm about to say is very important. There's a golden rule to building decks in MLP. And that golden rule is, if you are building with yellow, you include 3 owl. I've even got a small jingle for you to use. If you build a deck with yellow, then you use 3 owl. Okay? That is very, very important. 2 owl is not enough. It is a 1-cost card that gives you a potentially infinite amount of power that your opponent has to spend resources getting rid of. There is absolutely no reason not to max this out every single time you build a deck with yellow. Wait a second, we're using Blossom Forth? But why? Look, this is the perfect example of a card that is good. It is a very good card, but it is being horribly misused. Think for a second. Blossom's entire ability is look at the top card of your deck for 2 action points, and if it's a friend, you can put it in play. Her entire ability is useful when you are using a deck with a lot of high-cost cards. Thorax doesn't like high-cost cards. Thorax wants your deck to be really cheap and really fast so that he can get really big and buff. Looking for effective cards for a swarm deck should look like...
Wow! That's a low price! Wow! That's a low price!
There's just nothing for Blossom Forth to do here. It doesn't need to be here. Opalescence is clunky, slow, that doesn't need to be here. Fluttershy Kind Pony isn't a bad card, but I'm thinking yellow-pink should be more aggressive, so I want something here that actually does more. It's really easy to flip Thorax, so you don't even need her for the color requirement. Mr. and Mrs. Shy, it doesn't have 2 or less power, so it doesn't do anything for Thorax. It doesn't give Thorax Swift, it only gives it to your friends. With Thorax in play, it's not like we need to be moving our critters and stuff around all that much, so there's just no reason for this to be here either. Reliable Racer, more than 2 power, filler. Smooths, more than 2 power, filler. Critter Caregiver horribly outclassed by Zipper. Brushy Angel honestly is an okay fit, but I feel like we can do better. We should really take advantage of the effects that low-cost yellow cards have, so we're going to put in a critter that actually does more for our field presence. This is closer to what I want to see. Consistent, powerful, strong early game advantage. Doesn't need fancy tricks, doesn't need setup, just take over the board. I'd like to introduce you to leader of the pack, Fluttershy. I like to call her Mama because she spits out 1 power babies every turn. So Mama's the only card that's going to have more than 2 power. It's okay for her to have 4 power because of everything else she brings to the table. First of all, at the end of each of your turns, she puts a 1 power critter token into play. That's awesome because it can go into play anywhere, and every time you get one of those 1 power tokens, Thorax gets another buff. On top of that, if she's at a problem, then all of those critters that she's at a problem with also get +1. So now it's a 2 power token for free, and Thorax still gets the +1. This happens every turn. It happens multiple times if you have multiple Fluttershy in play. It's just a great card. 3 Owl. If you use a deck with yellow, then you use 3 Owl. Bubble Buddy is probably one of the best critter control cards there are right now. If your opponent's trying to dismiss, banish, or move one of your other friends, you can just get rid of Brian instead, and he can come into play for free if you flip him during a face-off. If that's not enough for you, you can also sacrifice him during your main phase to get rid of one of your opponent's resources. And even if none of his other effects come into play at all, he's still 1 for a 1 power friend that can get bonuses. And of course, being a critter, he's going to get a lot of those bonuses. Zipper Whirl is fantastic, way better than the Fluttershy variant. Same effect, your critters don't count towards your home limit, but you can also Cutie Marker to make her 2 power, and you also get 2 1 critter tokens in play. That's basically 4 power, first of all, because you get the 2 1 tokens, and you also get +2 to Thorax. If they're in play with a Fluttershy, then they're 2 power instead of 1 power. Everything about this is good. There is no downside to running this card. One problem with the Fluttershy is if you already have one in play, then you draw another one, it's pretty much a dead card. But since this card can spit out tokens, it can still be useful even if you have one in play. Up in Smoke Philomene is a pretty cute card. This card is kind of like Rainbow Dash on Even Ground, except one of them is a really balanced and well-made card, and the other one is Rainbow Dash on Even Ground. This card pretty much stops control decks in their path because they cannot save up a bunch of action points. They're only allowed to keep 2 when they end their turn. This also doesn't affect you, which is really nice. The last one I would use is Pee-wee. Admittedly, there are a lot of cards that could go in this spot, but Pee-wee's just a really funny card, especially if you play it right after Philomena, because your opponent normally saves up the exact amount of action points they plan on using, so putting one card in play that makes your opponent just lose 1 action point could screw over some pretty hefty plans. And again, there are a lot of cards that could go in this spot, but I just think that Pee-wee's a really fun little fire starter. Plus, it's never bad to have your opponent lose 1 action point. Alrighty, now let's look over pink. Okay, timeout. Time right the heck out. Owl at 2. Dance Fever Disco King at 3. He has a 2 color requirement, and you don't even need random. Owl at 2. Flitter Ribbon Wielder at 3. She doesn't even do anything besides fight troublemakers at +1 power. Owl at 2. Ol Salt blocked at 3. Oh, I'm salty. I'm salty, alright. Okay, no to everything that just happened. What else are we using here? Princess Skystar. She's pretty good. She's just a better responsibility pie. She can stay. Lyra on a whim. Eccentric 3. Why do you need Eccentric so badly? Alright, listen. Eccentric doesn't do anything in a deck like this. Eccentric is for when you're being really defensive and you're stalling so that you can get to late game. That's not what Thorax wants. He wants your opponent to solve their problems because he wants to beat them in face-offs. This is something you use in like a pink-white or a pink-purple, something where you're trying to farm or just control your opponent's field. You're using yellow. Embrace the yellow. Let your opponent solve the problems and then beat them in the face-off with plus 20 power. This is all you really need pink to do. It consistently meets color requirements, and it's just strong enough to solve the problems. Let your critters do the heavy lifting, and let your pink sweep some stuff out of the way. Gummy is a 2-power pink critter, which is just awesome. It means he can help us meet color requirements, but he also gets the bonuses of being a critter. Holiday Spirit Pinky was made for a deck like this. Here's a spoiler alert. You're going to have more friends than your opponent, or at least that's the plan. And as long as you do, she's a 2-cost, 4-power pink friend who meets all of our color requirements. She's perfect. Tom, you need Tom. She's too good. Run Tom. 3 costs, destroy whatever you want. It's got 1 power, so it powers up Thorax. More rocks, less salt. Your events, it's so inconsistent. I don't even get what you're trying to accomplish with this. Yay's a great card, but it doesn't benefit Thorax. Here's your invitation is, it's bad, sack it. It's only useful if there's something specific you have in mind. Like if you know for sure you want to get rid of a cover-to-cover Twilight or a Forest Owl or something. Other than that, it's just not that great. Downright dangerous, it's just so old and outclassed. It's not like you need to be dismissing friends anyway. Just let Skystar and Rock get rid of the friends that you don't need, okay? And honestly, it's not even going to be that many that you have to use them on. Anything I can do to help? Main phase. Put an opponent's friend or resource into its owner's hand for 4 with 2 power and no immediate. Okay, yes. Relax, breathe. Try something a bit closer to this. Critter Cavalry, 1 cost, consistently gives you 5 power. This card almost never doesn't give you 5 power. Let's get this party started. A deck like this can play its friends so fast. Getting 3 for 1 action point is really, really good. And since it only has a 2 color requirement, you can play it regardless of which friend you have in play. Finally, friends are always there. It's 2 cost, 5 power, and it's actually got some pretty nice uses. You can dismiss a resource if there's a resource really bugging you. You could hypothetically gain control of an opponent's troublemaker. That's useless, never use that one. Or you can get 3 1-power critters in play. The first and third effect are just glorious, and the fact that you can choose which one you want to use just makes this card way too good not to use. Whoa, what are all of these resources doing here? Did you for a second forget that you're not playing a white deck? No. Okay, this one is amazing. This one is going to stay. Pirate Ship, awful, not useful in the slightest. Cardboard Box, okay. Can't contribute power during face-offs. We want our opponent to contribute during face-offs because we can beat them. Too many bandages, again, there's no reason to be playing this. Ridiculous outfit, okay, more like this was a ridiculous choice for this deck. And Cheese Shoes, I've actually never heard of Cheese Shoes. Give me a second. Oh, that's why I've never heard of it. It's not very good. 1 for +2 power, and Eccentric 2. No Eccentric. Just stop. Stop with the Eccentric. Let them come to us. How about this? Bam. Isn't that nice? It's just so simple. That's the only one we need. That's it. Just save the other room for more critters and stuff. Also, noticed you're using this. Decent, but not here. The power's too high, and we don't need the control effect. Okay, so let's see these troublemakers. They're kind of messy. Okay, so Yellow Parasprite, I understand. I talk all the time about Yellow Parasprite. It's cool, but, I mean, if you're gonna do it, why just do it at 1 copy? Brown Parasprite, though, is awful. It's really, really bad. Don't run stuff that discards the cards from the top of your opponent's deck unless it's a win condition. It just doesn't do anything. Don't run it. Twittermites, wait, you have to be losing to get their effect? No thanks. Starlight Glimmer, okay, I don't know which Starlight Glimmer you're running, but I guess I'll look at both of them. Characters here have 2 power, can't lose or gain power. Well, that's definitely not the one we want. And now this Starlight Glimmer, when this card is uncovered, you can move one of your characters. Oh, great, this one sucks too, so we can just get rid of all of them. Let's do this. Let's just run an all-villain lineup. Why, you ask? Well, I'll explain. A fan of mine made me very aware of a strategy that's often used in Orange. It's a strategy I think we can take advantage of here. See, Thorax, as we established earlier, is a Super Saiyan. We're allowed to fight our own villains and they're worth points. So if we just line up a bunch of villains for Thorax to take down, then it'll make us win faster. This also counters our opponent from being able to play a bunch of friends to stop Thorax. If we just spam a bunch of villains on Thorax's problem, then every time our opponent moves a friend over there, their friend is going to get frightened. But main characters can't get frightened. And even if your opponent wants to move their main over to take care of your main, there's only like 2 mains in the entire game that can stand up to Thorax. So most of the time, you're still going to be strong enough to beat them. Nightmare's at 3 because she's the best. We can use her to get 3 new cards, and she's worth 3 points, so that's great. King Sombra has an optional effect where we can pay 2 to dismiss a bunch of our opponent's friends. This is okay, but we're probably not going to use that effect very often because it would affect us more. And then Trixie is a villain too. She can only really affect friends, and we're not planning on playing a bunch of friends with Thorax, so really there's no downside to her. You just kill these villains over and over again and reap the benefits. Ugh, problem decks are tedious. Whatever you're using is probably fine. Here's what I would use though, and I'll give you a quick rundown. Bunny Breakout should always be your starting problem because it lets you turn 2 flip your main character. Too Many Flutter Babies gives you free movement. Best Pet Win has a 3 bonus, and you can search your deck for a free friend. Anxious Animals can spit you out a 1 power critter friend every turn. Tough Call can let you draw a card every turn. This way, Little One is more free movement. Glad that's over. Now, Thorax, like I said before, has a lot of different options and can work in a lot of different things. Here are some alternate cards and strategies you could use to change it up if you really want to. Purple's also a really good color for this strategy if you want to change it up from pink because Princess Luna can spit out Figment tokens. You also gain access to cards like All Team Organizer Twilight and Cover to Cover Princess Twilight. They have 2 power and 0 power respectively, so they'll each power up your Thorax and they'll make your plays a lot faster. A white strategy using Truly Outrageous Rarity would work because you can just take her and move her to Thorax's problem and then move her home to solve Thorax's problem and get the bonus points. Since she goes home at the end of the turn, you don't have to worry about her being there when you flip over a villain, so you could really just do this to win the game much faster. I hate this card to death, but Critters will always just work really well with On Even Ground Rainbow Dash, so you could build a deck around this. Animal Allies is a really good card, but it's a little bit cheesy. Chances are, if you have this in play and it's getting a lot of power, then you're probably winning already, or your board already looks pretty good, so I don't really see a reason to use it. If you don't want to use Pee-wee, there are a couple of critters that fill that spot as well, Calvin and Theo being one of them because they eat through resources. Battle Snakes is decent because it'll get rid of Troublemakers for a turn. Also, you could consider putting in DJ Pawn 3, every Pony Shufflin'. This is a pretty decent card, but again, it's very situational. Since it doesn't actually stay on the field, you don't have to worry about it messing with your Thorax. Like, it doesn't matter whether it powers up Thorax or not because it's meant to go back to your hands. Really decent draw engine, though, if you happen to run out of cards. You could probably take out 1 or 2 of the pink cards and just put this in. It doesn't really matter which ones you do. Beast Bulk Up is pretty great because your opponent can't see it coming. My only problem with this is, of course, if you have enough critters and stuff in play, then chances are you're already winning, so this isn't going to be as useful as you think it will, but it can catch your opponent off guard, and it's pretty useful. This card's pretty nice for a gacha too. It gives you 2 1-power critters, which is just a nice thing to have for 1 cost. The only problem with it, of course, being that the event that we're using already gives us 3 critter tokens, and we can also use it to get rid of a resource if we want. But this can be used during your opponent's turn, which makes it okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Dilemma cards, but this one's actually pretty darn good. You can use it to put a 1-power critter token in play at each of your problems every single time you solve it, and like we said before, Thorax can take care of it by himself. So consider making some room and running this if you really want. And finally, Critter Cuisine is nice, but it's not as good as Fast Food. If you really wanted to, you could keep Fast Food at 3 and then find a way to sneak a couple of Critter Cuisines in. It's a little bit overkill, but it's not the worst idea out there. Whew, I think that's about all I have. Thank you for the deck to Doctor. I know some of these cards might be hard to get a hold of, so just try to make something a little bit more centralized. I hope I was able to give you an idea of how a deck like this could run. Really, just find some cheap 1 to 2 power friends, put Thorax on your opponent's problem, and just let him take care of that. That's kind of his spot. Focus on beating the other problem, and you should be good to go, even if you can't build the deck exactly how I have it here. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Like I said before, Thorax has just a million different decks he can go in, and there are a lot of different things to try out, so I hope you have a lot of fun with him. And, don't ever run this again. Don't ever run this again. 3 copies of Old Salt. 3 copies of Old Salt. Alright, I'm done. Get out of here. Get out of here, you. Get out. Can I get my outro, please? Hey, you, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you left me a like. They help the channel grow and let me know that you want more of this kind of content in the future. The channel is currently being supported by these lovely folks on Patreon. You guys rock. If you have any thoughts on the video, of course leave them in the comment section below, along with suggestions on what I should do next. But also answer this question to prove that you made it to the end of the video, if you feel like it. And finally, if you found this video by accident, then subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. You can also hit the notification bell. Ringing the little bell will let you know when I upload a new video. See you next time!